The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth when Clara found the tape. It sat on her porch, nestled in a plastic bag, unassuming yet heavy with intent. No note, no name, just a scuffed cassette, its label scratched blank. 12 years had passed since her brother, Elias, vanished, and Clara had long stopped expecting signs of him. Yet her hands trembled as she picked it up, the weight of it pulling at something deep inside her, like a thread unraveling a wound she'd stitched shut. Clara's porch overlooked a quiet stretch of Vermont woods, where mist clung to the pines like a shroud. She'd moved here to escape the city's noise, the endless questions about Elias, the pitying glances. At 34, she lived alone, her days filled with the soft hum of her pottery wheel and the crackle of her kiln. But the tape disrupted that rhythm. She stood frozen, her fingers tracing its edges, her mind racing back to the last time she'd seen him. Elias had been 22, restless, his dark eyes always searching for something beyond the horizon. They'd grown up in a small apartment in Boston, their mother a nurse who worked nights, their father a ghost who'd left before Clara could form memories of him. Elias was her anchor, her reckless, brilliant brother who'd read her tarot cards by flashlight when she couldn't sleep, who'd promised they'd see the world together. But that summer, something shifted. He'd grown distant, his laughter brittle, his gaze darting as if he saw shadows no one else could. He went to see her, Clara whispered to the empty porch, her breath catching. The fortune teller. Madame Zarina, they'd called her. A woman who operated out of a cramped storefront in Chinatown. Her windows draped in velvet, her sign promising gross truths revealed. Elias had laughed about it at first, said it was just for fun, but when he came back that night he was different. Quiet. Haunted. He wouldn't tell Clara what the woman had said, only that he needed to figure things out. 2 days later, he was gone. No note, no trace, just his jacket left on the couch and his wallet untouched on the kitchen counter. The police found nothing. No witnesses, no leads. Madame Zarina claimed she didn't remember Elias, her eyes cold when Clara begged for answers. Friends speculated. Maybe he'd run off to start over. Maybe he'd gotten into trouble. But Clara knew better. Elias wouldn't leave her without a word. He'd promised. Now, standing on her porch, Clara felt that promise twist into something sharp. She carried the tape inside, her bare feet cold against the hardwood. Her living room was sparse, a sagging couch, a coffee table cluttered with clay-stained rags, a turntable she hadn't touched in months. But she still had her old cassette player, buried in a box of keepsakes from their childhood. She dug it out, her hands shaking as she plugged it in. The hum of electricity like a heartbeat. She pressed play. Static hissed, then cleared, and there it was, Elias's voice. Low, rough, but unmistakably his. "Clara," he said, and her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, clutching the player. "If you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I never meant to leave you like this. I don't have much time. Listen carefully." Her breath hitched. The tape crackled as if the words were being pulled from some distant place. "I found something," Elias continued. "After Zarina, I couldn't stop. She showed me a door, Clara. Not a real one, but something else. A way to see what's hidden. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong. It's bigger than me, bigger than us." Clara's nails dug into her palms. A door? Hidden things? This wasn't the Elias she knew, the one who'd mocked psychics and rolled his eyes at ghost stories. His voice grew urgent. "They're watching. They always have been. If you find this, don't come looking for me. Promise me, Clara. But you need to know. The truth is in the cards, the ones I left you. Find them, read them, but be careful. They'll see you too. They'll see you too." The tape cut off abruptly, replaced by silence. Clara stared at the player, her heart pounding. The cards. She hadn't thought of them in years. Elias's tarot deck, hand-painted, a gift from their mother before she died. He'd left it in Clara's room the night he disappeared, tucked under her pillow. She'd packed it away, unable to look at it, the memory too raw. She scrambled to her bedroom, pulling boxes from the closet until she found it. A wooden box, its lid carved with a crescent moon. Inside, the cards were worn, their edges soft from Elias's hands. The Fool, the Tower, the Star. She spread them on the floor, her fingers lingering on the moon, its image of a wolf howling under a silver sky. Elias had always said it meant secrets, illusions, the truth buried deep. What had he found? And who was watching? Clara's gaze drifted to the window. The woods were dark, the mist thicker now, curling like fingers against the glass. She felt exposed, as if something out there was waiting. She closed the curtains, her pulse racing. The tape, the cards, Elias's voice. They were pieces of a puzzle she didn't understand. But one thing was clear. He was alive. Or had been when he made the tape. The thought ignited a spark of hope, fragile but fierce. She replayed the tape, listening for clues, but the words remained cryptic. A door. A truth. Watchers. Each phrase sank into her, stirring memories she'd buried. Elias's late night rants about fate, his obsession with patterns in the stars, the way he'd stare at the cards as if they held answers. She'd thought it was just his way of coping with their mother's death. But now she wondered, had he seen something real? Had Madame Zarina shown him something that broke him? Clara's eyes fell on the cards again. The truth is in the cards, he'd said. She wasn't like Elias. She didn't believe in omens or hidden worlds. But she couldn't ignore this. Not now. She gathered the deck, her hands steadying. She'd never read tarot before, but she remembered how Elias did it. 3 cards, past, present, future. A simple spread. She shuffled, the cards whispering against her palms. The first card she drew was the Tower, upside down. Reversed, it meant resisting change, clinging to illusions. The past, their life before Elias vanished, when Clara thought they could outrun their grief. The second card, the present, was the moon. Secrets, intuition, a truth just out of reach. Her breath caught. The final card, the future, was the hermit. A search for wisdom, but also isolation. A warning. Clara stared at the spread, her skin prickling. The cards felt alive, their images shifting in the dim light. She didn't know what they meant, not really, but they echoed Elias's words. A truth. A door. Something watching. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. Clara's gaze darted to the door, half expecting a knock, a shadow, anything. But there was only silence, heavy and waiting. She clutched the cards, her brother's voice echoing in her mind. "Don't come looking for me," he'd said. But how could she not? 12 years of questions, of guilt, of wondering if she could have saved him. It all surged back, raw and unrelenting. She didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, the tape player silent, the cards spread before her. The mist outside thickened, swallowing the trees, and Clara felt it again. That sense of being watched. Not by Elias, but by something else. Something that had followed him through whatever door he'd found. By dawn, her decision was made. She'd find the truth, no matter what it cost. The cards were her map, the tape her guide. And somewhere in the shadows of whatever world Elias had stumbled into, she'd find her brother, or the reason he was gone. Clara's hands shook as she packed a bag. The tarot deck, the tape, a notebook, and a flashlight. The dawn light filtered through her curtains, pale and thin, but it did nothing to ease the weight in her chest. Elias's voice on the tape looped in her mind, each word a hook pulling her toward a truth she wasn't sure she could face. The truth is in the cards, he'd said. But the cards were silent now. Their images, tower, moon, hermit, burned into her memory like a warning. She drove back to Boston, the Vermont woods fading in her rearview mirror. The city felt alien after years of solitude, its streets too loud, its air too heavy. Her destination was Chinatown, where Madame Zarina's storefront had once stood. If Elias's disappearance began with the fortune teller, Clara would start there, no matter how many years had passed. The tape mentioned a door, something Zarina had shown him. Clara needed to know what it was, and why it had taken her brother. The storefront was gone. In its place was a bubble tea shop, its neon sign buzzing, its windows plastered with cartoon pandas. Clara stood on the sidewalk, her bag slung over her shoulder, staring at the shop as if it could rewrite the past. A teenager with pink hair leaned against the wall, scrolling on her phone. Clara approached, her voice tight. "Do you know what used to be here?" "A fortune teller's place, maybe." The girl glanced up, chewing gum. "Nah, this has been here forever, like at least since I was a kid." She shrugged and went back to her phone. Clara's stomach twisted. She stepped inside the shop, the bell jingling. The air smelled of sugar and jasmine. A woman behind the counter smiled, but Clara's question about the building's history was met with a blank look. "We've been here 10 years, the woman said. "Before that, I don't know, maybe check the library." Clara left, her hope fraying. The library was her next stop, a hulking building with flickering fluorescent lights and the musty scent of old books. She spent hours combing through city records, her fingers smudged with dust. Finally she found it, a lease from 13 years ago, naming Zarina Velikor as the tenant of the Chinatown storefront. No forwarding address, no other records. The name felt like a taunt, too precise, too poetic. Velikor, the nostalgia of old books. Clara wrote it down, her pen digging into the paper. Back at her old apartment, now sublet to a stranger but still hers on paper, she sat on the floor, the tarot deck in her lap. The cards were her only lead, but she didn't know how to read them the way Elias did. She closed her eyes, picturing his hands shuffling, his voice soft as he explained their meanings. She drew 3 cards again, whispering, "Show me what he saw." The Fool, the Magician, the Wheel of Fortune. Her breath caught. The Fool was beginnings, a leap into the unknown. The Magician was power, creation, a bridge between worlds. The Wheel was fate, cycles, things beyond control. Together they felt like a story, Elias stepping into something vast, something he couldn't escape. But what? That night, Clara dreamed of a door. Not wood or metal, but a shimmering veil, like heat rising from asphalt. Elias stood before it, his back to her, his voice a murmur she couldn't catch. She reached for him, but the veil burned her hand, and she woke gasping, her palms stinging as if branded. The cards were still on the floor, the magician face up, its figure holding a wand that seemed to glow. She couldn't stay still. The next morning she walked the city, retracing Elias's steps from that summer. The diner where they'd shared fries, the park where he'd sketched strangers, the bookstore where he'd bought his tarot deck. Each place was a ghost, unchanged yet empty without him. At the bookstore she asked about Zarina, but the clerk shook his head. "Never heard of her, but we've got some old tarot books in the back if you're into that." Clara bought one, its pages yellowed, its text dense with symbols and rituals. She read it on the subway, her finger tracing a passage about doors between worlds. The words made her skin crawl. Was that what Elias meant? A literal door? Or something in his mind, a delusion Zarina had planted? Back at the apartment, she played the tape again. Elias's voice was fainter this time, as if the cassette itself was fading. "They're watching," he said, and Clara's eyes darted to the window. The city lights blurred, and for a moment, she swore she saw a shadow move, not outside, but in the glass reflection. She yanked the curtains shut, her heart racing. The cards were her anchor. She spread them out, trying to mimic Elias's confidence. "What do I do next?" she whispered, drawing a single card. The High Priestess. Intuition, secrets, a guide. Clara's chest tightened. Was it telling her to trust herself? Or warning her of someone else, a woman like Zarina, pulling strings from the shadows? She didn't sleep. The city's hum felt like a pulse, alive and watching. By morning, she knew she couldn't stay. Zarina was gone, but a Elias's trail wasn't cold. The cards, the tape, they were leading her somewhere. She just had to be brave enough to follow. Clara's search took her north to a small town in Maine where the bookstore clerk had mentioned an occult fair held every summer. It was a long shot, but the tarot book's margins had a handwritten note, Zorina, Maine, 12. The year Elias vanished. Clara clung to it, the only clue she had. The fair was still active, a gathering of psychics, crystal sellers, and drifters chasing the mystical. If Zorina had been there, someone might remember her. The drive was 6 hours, the road winding through forests so dense they seemed to swallow the sky. Clara's car was old, its radio broken, so she played the tape instead, Elias's voice filling the silence. "The truth is in the cards," he said, and she glanced at the deck on the passenger seat, its wooden box rattling with every bump. She'd started carrying it everywhere, a talisman against the growing sense that she wasn't alone. The fair was held in a field outside town, a patchwork of tents and bonfires. The air smelled of sage and damp grass. Clara wandered, her boots sinking into the mud, her eyes scanning faces. Most were young, their enthusiasm bright, but some were older, their gazes sharp, as if they saw more than they let on. She asked about Zorina, describing the woman she'd met 12 years ago. Tall, silver hair, eyes like polished obsidian. No one knew her, but a man selling runes suggested she check the elder's tent, where the fair's organizers met. The tent was larger than the others, its entrance flanked by lanterns. Inside, 3 women sat at a table, their hands busy with cards and charts. The oldest, her face lined like tree bark, looked up as Clara entered. "You're looking for someone," she said, not a question. Clara hesitated, then described Zorina. The woman's expression didn't change, but her fingers stilled. "That name's not familiar," she said. "But people come and go. Some don't use their real names." She gestured to the cards. "Want a reading? Might clarify things." Clara's instinct was to leave, but the High Priestess card flashed in her mind. She sat, her bag heavy on her lap. The woman shuffled, her movements fluid, and laid out 3 cards. The past, the hanged man. Sacrifice, surrender. The present, the star Wow. Hope, but distant. The future, the devil. Bondage, temptation, something holding tight. Clara's throat tightened. What does it mean? The woman's eyes met hers, unblinking. "You're chasing a shadow. Something took your person, but it's not done with you. Be careful what you invite in." Clara left the tent, her skin cold. The fair's noise faded as she walked to her car, the devil card's image, a chained figure, burning in her mind. Was it Elias trapped? Or her, if she kept going? She drove to a motel, the only one in town, its neon sign flickering. In her room, she spread Elias's cards on the bed, searching for answers. She drew one, the chariot. Movement, determination, a path forward. It felt like permission. That night, she dreamed again. The veil door was closer, its edges sharper, and Elias was gone. In his place was a figure cloaked in shadow, its voice a hiss. "You shouldn't be here." Clara woke, her shirt damp with sweat, the room too quiet. She checked the lock, then played the tape, clinging to Elias's voice. "They're watching," he said, and she felt it, a prickling at the back of her neck like eyes in the dark. The next morning she returned to the fair, determined to find something concrete. A woman selling herbs overheard her asking about Zorina and pulled her aside. "I don't know her," she whispered. "But there's a place, an old house in the woods. People like her go there. It's not safe." She gave Clara directions, her hands trembling. Clara's pulse quickened. A lead, finally. She thanked the woman and left, the directions scrawled on a napkin. The house was her next step, but the warning lingered. Not safe. She gripped the tarot deck, its weight grounding her. Whatever was waiting, she'd face it. For Elias. The house was hidden deep in the Maine woods, its path unmarked, the trees so close they clawed at Clara's car. The napkin's directions were vague, left at the forked oak straight past the creek, but she found it just as dusk fell, a sagging Victorian with boarded windows and a roof half collapsed. It looked abandoned, but the air around it hummed like a tuning fork struck too hard. Clara parked, her flashlight's beam cutting through the gloom. The tarot deck was in her pocket, the tape in her bag. She felt their weight like armor. The front door creaked open at her touch, as if it had been waiting. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and something sweeter, like rotting fruit. Her flashlight revealed a parlor, faded wallpaper, a cracked mirror, a table covered in melted wax. Clara's breath echoed. "Hello?" she called, her voice small. No answer. But the floorboards groaned, not from her steps. She moved deeper, her light catching symbols carved into the walls, spirals, eyes, things that made her chest tighten. The tarot book had mentioned symbols like these, sigils for crossing thresholds. Was this the door Elias meant? Not a physical one, but a place where the veil between worlds thinned. The thought made her dizzy, but she pressed on, driven by his voice on the tape. "Find it," he'd said. A staircase led to the second floor. Clara climbed, each step creaking, her hand brushing the banister's splintered wood. At the top, a hallway stretched, doors lining both sides. She tried the first, finding only a moldy mattress and scattered papers. The second was locked. The third opened to a room that stopped her cold. It was a shrine. Candles, long burned out, circled the table. On it, a tarot deck, not Elias's, but similar, its cards larger, their images grotesque. The fool had no face. The tower bled red. Clara's hand hovered, then pulled back. The air felt wrong here, heavy, like a held breath. She scanned the room, her light catching a photograph pinned to the wall. Her heart stopped. It was Elias, younger, his eyes wide, standing in this room. Clara tore the photo down, her hands shaking. On the back, in unfamiliar handwriting, Elias 2012, chosen. Chosen for what? Her mind raced, the word, "that," from the tape echoing. Who had taken this? Zorina? Someone else? She stuffed the photo in her bag, her breath ragged. She needed to leave, but not yet. Not without more. She searched the room, finding a journal under the table. Its pages were filled with entries, some in English, others in a script she didn't recognize. One caught her eye. The boy sees too much. The veil accepts him, but the watchers are restless. Clara's skin crawled. The veil. The watchers. Elias's words written by a stranger. She kept reading, her flashlight flickering. He must be bound or he'll break the balance. Clara's knees weakened. Bound? Was Elias trapped here in this house, this veil? She flipped to the last page, dated a month ago. Another seeks him. She carries his mark. The cards will draw her. Clara dropped the journal, her pulse roaring. The mark. Her hand went to the tarot deck in her pocket. Elias's deck. Was it leading her here, not to save him, but to trap her too? A noise downstairs, a soft thump, like a door closing, made her freeze. She grabbed the journal and crept to the hallway, her flashlight off. Silence, then footsteps, deliberate, climbing the stairs. Clara backed into the shrine room, her breath shallow, and hid behind the door. The steps stopped outside. She held her breath, her heart pounding. The door didn't open. Instead, a voice, low, female, unfamiliar, whispered, "You shouldn't hide from the veil." Clara's blood ran cold. The footsteps retreated, fading downstairs. Clara waited, counting to 100, then slipped out, clutching the journal. She ran to her car, the woods pressing in, the houses hum following her. At the motel, she read the journal again, her hands trembling. The veil was described as a conduit, a place where worlds overlapped, where the watchers guarded secrets. The cards were keys, each deck unique, tied to its bearer. Elias's deck had chosen him, and now it was hers. She drew a card, desperate. The tower, again. Sudden change, destruction, revelation. It felt like a promise and a threat. She didn't sleep. The house was a lead, but it was alive, watching. She had to keep moving, find Zarina, understand the veil before it claimed her too. Clara left Maine before sunrise, the journal and photograph beside her, the tarot deck in her pocket. The house had changed everything. Elias wasn't just missing, he was caught in something ancient, something that knew her name. The journal's words, "She carries his mark," haunted her. Was it the deck? Or something deeper, a connection to Elias she'd never seen? Her hands gripped the wheel, the road blurring as she drove south. No plan but to find Zarina, the woman who'd started it all. She stopped at a diner in New Hampshire, its fluorescent lights buzzing. Over coffee? She pored over the journal, its entries a mix of prophecy and madness. One passage described the Watchers. They see through the veil. Timeless, formless, bound to no name. They choose who crosses, who stays, who breaks. Clara shivered, glancing at the diner's window. Her reflection stared back. But for a moment, it wasn't hers. Her eyes were too dark, too still. She blinked, and it was gone. The journal mentioned a circle, a group tied to the veil, meeting in secret. No names but a symbol, a spiral with an eye at its center. Clara had seen it in the house, carved into the walls. She sketched it in her notebook, her pen shaking. If Zarina was part of this circle, Clara needed to find them. The journal's last entry hinted at a meeting place, the City of Rivers, where the old bridge stands. Pittsburgh, Clara realized, her heart quickening. The city's 3 rivers and historic bridges fit the description. She drove through the night, the tape playing on loop. Elias's voice was fainter now, the cassette wearing thin. "Don't come looking for me," he said. But Clara couldn't stop. Not now, not with the journal's warnings, the photo of Elias, the cards pulling her forward. She drew one at a gas station, her hands numb from the cold. The Empress. Creation nurturing a feminine force. Was it Zarina? Or something else? Guiding her. Pittsburgh greeted her with rain, its streets slick and gray. She checked into a cheap hotel and searched online for occult groups, anything tied to the spiral eye symbol. Nothing. But a post on a forum caught her eye. A user named Sear12 mentioned a circle meeting near the Old Point Bridge, now a park. The post was 3 days old. Clara's pulse raced. It was thin, but it was something. She went to the park at dusk, the journal tucked into her jacket. The bridge's remains were a shadow in the fog, its arches looming over the river. No one was there. Clara waited, her flashlight off, her breath misting in the cold. An hour passed, then 2. She was about to leave when she saw it. A spiral scratched into a bench, fresh, the wood still raw. Her hand went to the tarot deck, instinct urging her to draw. The moon, again. Secrets, illusions, something close. Footsteps crunched behind her. Clara turned, her heart in her throat. A woman stood there, older. Her silver hair braided, her eyes sharp. Not Zarina, but familiar, like a memory Clara couldn't place. "You're his sister," the woman said, her voice low. "You shouldn't be here." Clara's mouth went dry. "Where's Elias? What did Zarina do to him?" The woman's gaze flickered to Clara's pocket where the deck bulged. "You carry his key. That's why they see you." She stepped closer, her voice urgent. "The veil isn't a place, it's a state. Elias crossed it, and it changed him. You're close to crossing too." Clara backed away, her hand on the deck. "Tell me where he is." The woman shook her head. "He's not here. Not anymore. But the cards know. Ask them, but be ready. The Watchers don't forgive." She turned and vanished into the fog, leaving Clara alone. Clara ran to her hotel, her mind spinning. The woman's words echoed the journal, the veil, the Watchers, the cards. She spread the deck on the bed, her hands shaking. Where is he? She whispered, drawing 3 cards. The star, hope, distance. The death, transformation, endings. The world, completion, a cycle closed. Her chest ached. Was Elias gone, transformed, or waiting at the cycle's end? She dreamed that night of the veil door, its shimmer now a pulse, like a heartbeat. Elias was there, but his hands were shadows, his voice a chant. Ask them. She woke, the deck warm in her hand, as if she'd held it all night. The woman was right. The cards were her guide, but they were also her tether to something she didn't understand. She had to keep going. Find the circle, find Zarina, find Elias, before the Watchers found her. Clara stayed in Pittsburgh, the city's rivers a mirror to her unease. The woman at the bridge had confirmed what the journal suggested. Elias was tied to the veil, a realm the cards could touch. But the woman's warning, the Watchers don't forgive, made Clara feel like prey. She checked her reflection obsessively, afraid of shadows in her eyes, of the deck's pull growing stronger. It was Elias's, but it knew her now, its cards shifting under her touch, their images sharper, more personal. She hunted the circle, the group tied to the veil. The spiral eye symbol was her only clue, and she scoured Pittsburgh for it. Graffiti, jewelry, tattoos. At a coffee shop, she overheard 2 students talking about a weird group meeting in an old warehouse by the Allegheny River. One mentioned a spiral tattoo on a member's wrist. Clara's heart leapt. She asked for details, playing it casual, and got an address. It was a start. The warehouse was in a rundown district, its windows blacked out, its walls tagged with faded murals. Clara went at night, the journal and deck in her bag, the tape in her pocket. She'd stopped playing it, afraid it would wear out, but Elias's voice was burned into her mind. They're watching. She felt it now, a weight on her shoulders, like eyes in the dark. The warehouse door was ajar. Inside, voices murmured, low and rhythmic. Clara slipped in, her sneakers silent on the concrete. The air smelled of incense and metal. In the center of the room, 5 people sat in a circle, candles flickering between them. One, a man with a spiral tattoo, held a deck, not tarot, but similar, its cards glowing faintly. Clara hid behind a crate, her breath shallow. The group chanted, words Clara didn't understand, their voices rising and falling like waves. The man laid a card, a figure with no face, its hands raised. The air shifted, heavy, electric. Clara's deck warmed in her bag as if responding. She gripped it, afraid it would move on its own. The chant stopped and the man spoke. The veil is thin tonight. She's close. Clara's blood froze. Her hand went to the deck, drawing a card without thinking. The High Priestess, again. Intuition, secrets, a guide. Was it her or them? The group turned, their eyes scanning the dark. Clara pressed against the crate, her heart pounding. They hadn't seen her, but they knew. The man stood, his voice sharp. Show yourself. Clara ran, her footsteps echoing. She burst outside, the river's cold air hitting her face. She didn't stop until she reached her hotel, her chest heaving. The deck was hot now, almost burning her hand. She spread it on the bed, the High Priestess staring up. What do they want? She asked, drawing another card. The Lover's card. Choice, union, connection. Clara's throat tightened. Was it about her and Elias, or a lure, a trap from the veil? The journal offered no answers, but a passage described the circle's rituals. They call to the veil, offering keys to those who seek it. But the Watchers choose who crosses. Clara's mind reeled. Elias had crossed, chosen by his deck. Now her deck, his deck, was hers. Was she chosen too? The cards were pulling her deeper, their images alive with secrets. She drew again. The sun. Clarity. Truth, but blinding. It felt like Elias urging her to see. She searched online, desperate for context. A blog post mentioned Velicor as a name tied to occult groups, not just books. It was a pseudonym used by women in the circle. Zorina. Clara's pulse surged. Zorina was part of this, maybe its leader. The warehouse was her next step, but not alone. She needed a plan, a way to face the circle without crossing the veil. That night, Clara dreamed of Elias, his face clear now, his eyes like hers. "You're close," he said, his voice soft. "But they'll try to keep you." The veil door was there, its light blinding. Clara reached for him, but her hand passed through and she woke, her hand tingling. The deck was open, the sun card on her chest as if she'd drawn it in her sleep. She clutched it, fear and hope mixing. The circle was calling, the veil waiting. She'd face them for Elias, but she'd cost her everything. Clara's hotel room in Pittsburgh felt like a cage, the walls pressing in as the tarot deck burned in her pocket. The encounter at the warehouse had shaken her. The circle, their chant, the way the air had thickened when they sensed her. The sun card, drawn in her sleep, lay on the nightstand, its radiant figure mocking her with promises of clarity she couldn't grasp. Elias was close, she felt it. But the veil and its watchers were closer, their presence a shadow that followed her every step. She couldn't go back to the warehouse unprepared. The journal, now dog-eared and smudged, offered fragments of insight. The circle used rituals to thin the veil, calling to those who carried keys, decks like Elias's. Clara's deck was her tether to him, but also her danger. The journal warned, the key chooses its bearer, but the watchers choose the price. What had Elias paid? And what would they demand of her? She needed allies, someone who understood the occult without being part of the circle. The tarot book from Boston mentioned Seers who operated alone, rejecting groups like the circle. Clara scoured online forums, her laptop screen casting a blue glow. A name surfaced. Mara, a woman in Philadelphia who read cards and claimed to see beyond. Her website was sparse, just an email and a photo of a woman with gray eyes and a cautious smile. Clara sent a message, vague but urgent. "I need help with a deck tied to the veil. My brother's missing." Mara replied within hours, agreeing to meet at a cafe in Philadelphia. Clara drove the next morning, the journal and deck in her bag, the tape too fragile to play again. The cafe was cramped, its air thick with espresso and chatter. Mara was already there, her gray eyes scanning Clara like a card spread. "You're Clara," she said, her voice low. "And you're marked." Clara's skin prickled. "Marked how?" Mara gestured to the deck, still in Clara's pocket. "It's bound to you now, like it was to him. Show me." Clara hesitated, then placed the deck on the table. Mara didn't touch it, her eyes narrowing. "This is old. Not just the cards, the energy. It's tied to the veil, but it's hungry." She leaned back. "Tell me everything." Clara recounted the tape, the house, the circle, the journal. Mara listened, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the table. When Clara finished, Mara sighed. "The veil isn't a place, not exactly. It's a current, a flow between what is and what could be. The Watchers guard it, but they're not human. They're forces. They use people like your brother to keep the balance." "Balance of what?" Clara's voice cracked. "Reality, possibility. Some cross the veil and see too much. Others get trapped. Your brother, he saw something they didn't want him to." Clara's chest tightened. "Is he alive?" Mara's eyes softened. "The cards can tell us." She nodded to the deck. "Draw." Clara's hand shook as she drew 3 cards. The Hierophant, the Chariot, the Star. Mara studied them, her brow furrowing. "He's caught, not gone. The Hierophant means a system, a ritual holding him. The Chariot says you can reach him, but it'll take everything. The Star..." She paused. "Oh, but far. You'll need to cross the veil." Clara's throat closed. "Ow." Mara's gaze was steady. "The circle's your way in. They're meeting again, tomorrow night, same warehouse. I've heard whispers. But you can't just walk in. The Watchers will see you, and they'll test you. Clara clutched the deck. Test me how? They'll offer you what you want most. Elias, maybe. Or truth. But it's a trap. Take it and you're theirs. Clara drove back to Pittsburgh, Mara's words echoing. The deck felt heavier, its cards whispering as she shuffled. She drew one before bed. The Fool, reversed. Recklessness, a misstep. It felt like a warning, but she was too far in to turn back. She dreamed of the veil door, its shimmer now a roar. Elias's voice calling her name. But another voice joined it, cold and vast. The next night, Clara parked a block from the warehouse, her flashlight off, the deck in her hand. Mara had given her a sigil, a circle with a slash through it, to ward off the Watcher's gaze. She'd drawn it on her wrist in ink, its lines stark against her skin. The warehouse loomed, its windows dark. She slipped inside, the air thick with incense and something sharper, like ozone. The circle was smaller tonight, 3 figures around a single candle. The man with the spiral tattoo was there, his deck glowing faintly. Clara stayed in the shadows, her heart pounding. They chanted, the air rippling, and Clara felt the deck pulse in her hand. She drew a card, unable to stop herself. The world reversed. Incompletion, a cycle broken. Her breath hitched. The chant stopped. The man's head snapped up. "She's here," he said, and Clara ran, her footsteps loud in the silence. She didn't stop until she reached her car, the sigil on her wrist burning. The deck was hot, almost alive. She'd failed again, but the cards were speaking. Elias was close. She just had to survive the Watchers. Clara didn't return to her hotel. The warehouse had been too close, the circle's awareness of her too sharp. She drove aimlessly through Pittsburgh, the deck in her lap, the sigil on her wrist still tingling. Mara's warning rang in her ears. The Watchers would test her, offer her what she wanted most. Elias. Truth. But at what cost? The journal's pages, now memorized, spoke of bindings and sacrifices. Had Elias been bound to the veil? Was she next? She pulled into a rest stop at dawn, her eyes burning from lack of sleep. The deck was her only guide now, its cards a language she was starting to understand. She shuffled, whispering, "Show me the way." The card she drew was the Magician, upright. Power, creation, a bridge. It felt like a call to act, to use the deck as Elias had. But how? She wasn't him. She didn't know the rituals, the chants. Yet the deck responded to her, its images shifting. The Magician's wand glowing brighter in her mind. Mara's email had included a phone number. Clara called, her voice shaky. "They saw me. I didn't get in, but the deck, it's doing something. It's alive." Mara's tone was calm but firm. "It's waking up. You're its bearer now. The veil knows you, and so do the Watchers. You need to confront the circle, but not in their space. Draw them out. Use the deck to call them." Clara's stomach twisted. Call them how? Find a place where the veil is thin. Rivers, old bridges, they're conduits. Lay a spread. Focus on Elias. The circle will feel it. But be ready. The Watchers will come too. Clara drove to the Point Bridge Park where she'd met the silver-haired woman. The rivers converged there, their currents a hum that matched the deck's pulse. It was midday, the park empty, the air heavy with coming rain. Clara sat on the grass, the deck in her hands. She spread 3 cards, her voice low. "Elias, show me where you are." The Hermit, the Tower, the Star. Wisdom, destruction, hope. The air shifted, a breeze turning cold. Clara's wrist burned, the sigil glowing faintly. She closed her eyes, picturing Elias, his dark eyes, his laugh. The deck warmed, and she felt it. A tug, like a thread pulling her towards something vast. The veil. Footsteps crunched behind her. Clara turned, expecting the circle, but it was Mara, her gray eyes sharp. "You're moving too fast," Mara said. "The veil's open now. They're coming." Before Clara could respond, the air rippled like a heat wave. A figure appeared. Not Mara, not the circle, but a shadow, its edges blurred, its eyes like voids. "You seek," it said, its voice a chorus of whispers. "What will you give?" Clara's heart pounded. The deck was burning now, the cards trembling. She drew one, instinct guiding her. The lovers, reversed. Division a wrong choice. "I want Elias," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Give him back." The shadow laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "He chose. You can too. Cross and see." The air thickened, the rivers hummed louder. Clara saw it, the veil door, shimmering in the daylight, Elias's silhouette beyond. She reached, but Mara grabbed her arm. "Don't. It's the test. Choose him, and you're trapped." Clara's vision blurred, tears burning. "I can't leave him." Mara's grip tightened. "You're not leaving him. You're fighting for him. Use the deck, not the veil." The shadow hissed, its form flickering. Clara clutched the deck, drawing another card, the chariot. Determination, control. She focused, picturing Elias, the cards, the sigil. "I won't cross," she said, "but I'll find him." The shadow dissolved, the air clearing. Mara exhaled, her face pale. "You passed, for now, but they'll try again." Clara's legs shook as she gathered the cards. The veil had been so close, Elias almost in reach. But Mara was right. She couldn't cross, not yet. The circle was still out there, Zarina among them. Clara had to find them, force their hand without losing herself. Clara and Mara planned their move. The circle was the key. Zarina, the spiral tattoo, the rituals. Mara knew of a ritual to bind the circle, forcing them to reveal their secrets without crossing the veil. It required a place of power, like the Point Bridge, and a spread to summon the circle's attention. But it was dangerous. "The Watchers will push back," Mara warned. "They don't like being challenged." Clara didn't care. Elias was trapped, his voice on the tape a plea she couldn't ignore. The deck was her weapon now, its cards alive with intent. She studied the journal, finding a ritual called. It used the 5 cards spread to summon those tied to the veil. Mara nodded when Clara showed her. "It'll work, but it'll mark you deeper. The Watchers will know your name." They returned to the Point Bridge at midnight, the rivers black under a moonless sky. Mara carried salt and sage, protective barriers against the Watchers. Clara laid the deck on the ground, the sigil on her wrist glowing faintly. She shuffled, her hands steady, and drew 5 cards. The Emperor, the High Priestess, the Tower, the Star, the World. Authority, secrets, destruction, hope, completion. A story of power and loss. Mara lit the sage, its smoke curling upward. "Focus on the circle. Call them." Clara closed her eyes, the deck warm in her hands. "Zarina," she whispered. "Come to me." The air grew heavy, the rivers hum a roar. The cards glowed, their images shifting. Elias's face flickered in the star, then vanished. Clara's heart raced. She felt them, the circle, their presence pulling like a tide. Figures emerged from the dark, 5 of them, the man with the spiral tattoo at the center. "You're bold," he said, his voice cold. "But foolish. The veil doesn't answer to you." Clara stood, the deck in her hand. "Where's Elias? What did Zarina do to him?" The man smiled, his eyes glinting. "Zarina showed him the truth. He chose to cross. You can too." Mara stepped forward, scattering salt. "She's not crossing. Tell us where he is or we'll bind you." The circle laughed, their voices blending into a hum. The air rippled, the veiled door shimmering behind them. Clara saw Elias clearer now, his hands pressed against the veil, his mouth moving. "Clara, don't!" She clutched the deck, drawing a card. The justice. Balance. Truth. Consequence. "I want my brother," Clara said, her voice steady. "Give him back, or I'll tear your circle apart." The man's smile faded. "You can't. The Watchers have him. Cross, and you'll see. Mara grabbed Clara's arm. Don't listen. The ritual, now. Clara laid the cards in a circle, chanting the words from the journal. The air crackled, the rivers roaring. The circle's faces twisted, their bodies flickering like static. The man lunged, but Mara's salt barrier flared, holding him back. Clara finished the chant, the deck burning in her hands. The veil door pulsed, and Elias's voice echoed, not from the tape, but from the air. Clara, stop. It's me. She froze, tears streaming. Elias? The man smirked. He's ours. Cross or lose him forever. Clara's hand hovered over the deck. The watchers were watching, their presence a weight in her chest. She drew one last card. The death reversed. Resistance to change, stagnation. She looked at Mara, then the veil door. I'm not crossing, she said, but I'm not leaving without him. The circle screamed, their forms dissolving. The veil door flickered, Elias's silhouette fading. Clara fell to her knees, the deck scattering. Mara pulled her back. You did it. They're bound. They can't hide him now. But Clara felt no victory. Elias was still gone, the veil still waiting. The cards were her only hope, their truth her only weapon. The ritual had worked, but not as Clara hoped. The circle was bound. Their power weakened, but Elias remained beyond the veil, his silhouette a fading echo. Clara sat by the river, the deck in her hands, Mara beside her. The cards were quiet now, their glow dim, but they still hummed with intent. The journal lay open, its final page a plea. To free the bound, break the key. Clara's heart sank. The key was the deck. To save Elias, she might have to destroy it. Mara urged caution. The deck's your anchor. Break it, and you might lose him forever. There's another way. Find Zarina. She started this. She knows how to end it. Clara nodded, but her hope was fraying. The watchers were silent, but their presence lingered, a shadow in her mind. She drew a card. The world, upright. Completion, a cycle closed. It felt final, but unclear, Elias's freedom or her own surrender. They searched for Zarina, starting with the circle's remnants. The man with the spiral tattoo was gone, but Mara knew of a safe house in Philadelphia, tied to the circle's network. They drove at dawn, the city's skyline a blur. The safe house was a row home, its windows curtained, its door marked with a faint spiral. Clara knocked, her heart pounding. No answer, but the door was unlocked. Inside, the air was heavy, like the main house. A table held candles, a deck, and a photo. Clara and Elias, taken years ago, their smiles bright. Clara's breath caught. She's been watching us. Mara scanned the room. Zarina's close. Look. A letter lay on the table, addressed to Clara. Her hands shook as she opened it. You've come far, it read, in Zarina's handwriting. The veil holds him, but it can release him. Meet me where the rivers join midnight. Bring the deck. Clara's pulse raced. A trap, maybe, but also a chance. Mara frowned. She's baiting you. The watchers want the deck. I have to go, Clara said. It's Elias. At midnight, Clara stood at the point bridge, the deck in her pocket, Mara hidden nearby. The rivers gleamed, the air electric. Zarina appeared, her silver hair glowing, her eyes like the watchers. You're stubborn, she said. Like him. Where's Elias? Clara demanded. Zarina smiled. Beyond the veil. Give me the deck, and I'll open it. Clara's hand tightened on the cards. No, free him first. Zarina's eyes darkened. You don't choose. The air rippled, the veil door appearing. Elias stood there, real, his eyes pleading. Clara, he said, his voice clear. Clara drew a card, the star, upright. Hope, guidance. She looked at Zarina, then Elias. I'm coming, she said, stepping toward the veil. Mara shouted, but Clara didn't stop. The deck burned, its cards falling like ash. The veil swallowed her, Elias's hand in hers. She woke in her Vermont home, the deck gone, the tape silent. Elias sat beside her, older, his eyes haunted but alive. "You shouldn't have," he whispered. "They let me go, but they'll want something else." Clara hugged him, tears falling. The watchers were still out there, the veil still waiting. But Elias was home. For now, it was enough.